We're grateful to know that we can rely on the generosity of Deluxe Cares. The Deluxe Corporation Foundation, through Deluxe Cares, is working to strengthen American communities by investing in education, financial literacy programs, and even job skills training. Athena's Warehouse received a grant from Deluxe Cares in 2020, which allowed us to maintain staff, purchase art supplies, and covered shipping costs to send care packages to our participants when we were unable to meet with them in person. Recently, in the fall of 2022, Deluxe Care showed up for our community again and provided us with an additional grant. Thank you so much to the Deluxe Corporation Foundation. You can learn more about their work by visiting deluxe.com/about/deluxecares.
Welcome back to Beyond Resilience, where we deep dive into the lives of women, non-binary, transgender, and gender nonconforming people in the metro and greater Atlanta area who exemplify resiliency by bouncing back and becoming greater as we leap beyond resilience. I want to welcome to the podcast our guest today, Whitney Bentley of Pomoja Keepsakes. Her business, Pomoja Keepsakes, offers custom digital illustrations and portraits, subscription box design, label design, logo design, instruction card design, and more for taking personal artwork that Whitney makes for fun and selling them on her website, to vending at pop-up events all around the city. Items like stickers, magnets, keychains, apparel, tote bags, and art prints can be found both on the Pomoja Keepsakes website as well as at these pop-up events. Whitney created and called her business Pomoja Keepsakes after having lived in Nairobi, Kenya, in a rural area for part of her childhood. And there, she saw what a community really looks like. Community members had their work to do, and not everyone's work was the same, but at the end of the day, everyone's tasks were viewed as important, and each person's work had its own highlighted value. In her business, she creates artwork with subjects that are representative and inclusive. She loves hearing that a piece reminds someone of a friend or family member. As a biracial person, it was often hard for her growing up without stories of women that looked like her or women that she saw herself reflected in. And so now she aims to create visuals that help everyone feel seen and to feel the importance of the part that they play in our community. So, welcome, Whitney. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. I thank you for that intro. That's super, super exact. I think you've gotten to know me very well.
Yes, plus pulling in some things that you had on your website made it a
Yes,
little bit easier.
yes,
And oh, I forgot to mention that Pamoja means togetherness in Swahili. And
yes.
so, it's all about bringing the community together through your art. How long have you been creating art?
I, on my mom's side of my family, I basically come from a family of artists and creators, which I think is something I've come to appreciate as I've gotten older. My grandpa was a self-taught artist. He learned how to do painting by buying like a paint by number in the like a pharmacy when my grandma was pregnant, and kind of fell in love with it. And so when I was around like 6 years old, I would have weekly like art lessons with him. And
Oh, yeah.
so that's really where I learned the basics of art and color and composition and stuff like that. From someone that I love very much. And so that's really where it started. And just from there throughout school and everything, just staying creative and being very supported and family to do that.
That's amazing. Well, that's super important to know, and I never really knew that. And it makes me though want to hear more about your childhood, where you grew up, and how you ended up on that stay over in Kenya that really shaped and formed the narrative that you paint for your business today. So if you could tell us more about, you know, how you grew up, and that would be great.
Yeah, I did end up in Kenya because my parents were missionaries. That process took a while to kind of get going, but between like the ages of 8, when they started doing training here, and then by the time we got there, I was 9, and then I turned 10 over there and came back to the U.S. after that point. But yeah, I grew up in Tampa initially, pretty diverse city. I was in public schools and, had a lot of experience with different cultures and things like that. I think just overall to answer that question, it's just I've had a lot of really unique experiences as a human um, that have allowed me to experience a lot of cultures and have made my own journey just very, unique to be able to, at a very young age, see so many different perspectives on life and on culture, and just my own personal journey of being a biracial person in a predominantly, white Southern family, has its own sets of complexities. And as I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate that, being a biracial person is its own identity. And there's just a lot of beauty and freedom in that. Um, and that's ultimately all those life experiences of growing up and seeing different cultures and experiencing, the own complexity within my own family. It just makes me want to highlight, individuals' experiences and create things that people can connect to, and visuals that resonate with people because of their own journeys. Everyone has that uniqueness about what they're going through, regardless of their culture, where they're from. And I think telling those stories to me is really what's really important, and also what's really exciting about my work.
That is beautiful. There's a lot of loud construction going on outside right now for me.
You can hear.
Okay, good, good. I do want to circle back to the idea of togetherness and how it comes to life in the work that you do, and also if you could talk more about your your work, what you do, who you work with, and why. Because I think it's beyond just trinkets, or or just design, and you try and really make it mission driven, the art that you create. And
Yeah.
so if you could tell us more about how the theme of togetherness and how you choose who you work with go hand in hand, that would be great.
Yeah, it's been really cool how my business has grown, and just kind of become what it is. I started, making artwork and selling it really in around 2014 ish. Um, and I was, selling things more so for fun while I was working, a job. And in 2019, I started Pamoja Keepsakes, fully, full time. And, you know, I had some folks I was already, but working with, but I think, being from Kenya, or, being in Kenya and having, you know, taking the inspiration from Pamoja, which is that concept of togetherness, that, everyone's role is significant and important. And, seeing and experiencing that sense of community and just gratitude that I experienced in Kenya and just remember so fondly. I wanted to bring that sort of sense of community and culture to my brand. And, you know, the way that I found my clients is kind of crazy. And I think it's, to me, um, sort of an act of faith because I don't really do a lot of marketing. So most of my clients have come to me through like word of mouth and just referrals. Um, and through that, I've built, a group of clients that are comprised of small businesses. A lot of times, they are brand new businesses, mostly women and non binary owned businesses, and also nonprofits that work with women and non binary people. So it's really cool how the things that I value have sort of aligned with, the clients that I have attracted at the same time. So I really love being able to work with, my small business clients and nonprofits. That's really my key area that I work with. And, you know, it's really cool to help folks, create visuals for, what they're passionate about and being able to tell their story. So my educational background is in sociology. So I am an investigator, I'm a researcher, and that's almost like my first and foremost skill. So I love being able to get to know my clients, learn about their work, learn about their missions, and that sort of sense of connection, I think, is what helps, create that togetherness in my brand. Just showing up and supporting each other really has been an exciting part of making Pamoja keepsakes this real life breathing thing.
That's so beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, so you have worked with Athena's Warehouse on a few projects. The first one was when we survived the pandemic, and we wanted to kind of celebrate the fact that as a nonprofit, we were still here because tons of nonprofits went out of business and no longer exist and are no longer doing that work. And so,
Yeah.
being in the schools and each week, I can see how things were already not great for students, and especially in the community that we serve, and how those things have just been exacerbated by the pandemic. And it's so important that we have visual storytellers, right? Because it's great for us to um, work with the students and help them develop their skills, but they need to see that, to have the tangibles, to have those visual representations of their resilience, of their ability to succeed. And not only did you design our T-shirt for our All Resiliency campaign. Resiliency being, resilience itself in action. And you also are in the process right now of creating a Minarch zine that we are doing, that is completely, art from students and stories from students about the first time that they experienced their period. And it's going to be such a beautiful gift that you're developing for these girls. And it's just been so great to have you as a resource also, because you've been a part of our new and revived virtual mentorship program. So your work with us is wide, it's expansive, and I just wanted to highlight for a moment, and also give you a break from having to carry the conversation, um, and really highlight for the listeners, what it means when we say that we've been partnering with Pamoja Keepsakes. But I do want to hear about the Atlanta landscape a bit. So, you went to school for sociology, you were motivated to get into art, and you've been doing art your whole life since you were a little girl. And so I wanted to hear about, you know, your just I guess just anything you wanted to say about being an artist here in Atlanta, and being a full-time artist. So creating this as a career, how, how I'm sure there have been highs and lows, and I just want to give the listeners the opportunity to get a better picture of what artists in Atlanta are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. I hope that is a question.
Definitely. I mean, Atlanta is a beautiful and very special space. I've lived in a lot of places, and in a lot of different types of communities, and Atlanta is certainly its own thing. I love that, as an artist and really as anyone coming to Atlanta, like I like to tell people it's basically like a small town in a big city, because once you sort of get into that, um, group of people that, that you're connecting with, whether it's a group of artists, whether you're in the music scene, the poetry scene, the um, chef scene, design scene, there's so many different, um, artistic communities within Atlanta. Once you sort of get in and you meet a few people, like it's just so much easier to sort of expand that network and go deeper and really learn from other people and be able to network easily, if you're willing to. So um, I really love Atlanta for that reason. Being a full-time artist is definitely definitely challenging. I am very real about, for folks who are just getting started, with any kind of new business, that there's no shame in having to, sort of pivot and um, you know, find ways to make ends meet, through like gig work or whatever side work you need to do. Another unique thing about Atlanta I found is most people have their side hustles. So if you're working, in the corporate world, I came out of the cellular sales world for over 10 years. And, a lot of folks I worked with, they all had secondary things that were going on that were their passions. So that's very common and I think unique to Atlanta as well. Um, so, like figure out what's going to really, um, be able to meet your needs. And at the point that you're ready to, say goodbye to that main job and take that leap of faith, like, you're fully in it. There's no accountability. There's no boss, who's going to tell you what to do. There's no one, making a schedule. So just learning how to stay creative and also stay organized, as a small business owner is definitely important. Finding that unique thing that you're delivering, that makes you special, I think is like the secret sauce in being successful and just staying motivated, because competition's gonna come up and might be intimidating. But at the end of the day, again, going back to Pamoja, like everyone has their passion, everyone has their purpose, and just being able to acknowledge like, hey, one of my best friends is an artist and we talk about it all the time. Like we do very similar things, but we never feel like it's this cutthroat competitive thing. Um, and that's because we have two completely different perspectives. And it's beautiful, being able to share resources and encourage each other. And at the same time, like we're both artists. Um, so I hope that answers your question. um, but yeah, I think being able to be in this special space and have a business is really, it's been a great journey, because there's so many people that I've been able to meet that can also relate to um, being an independent artist and having to balance life and work, and be able to just honestly root for each other in that process.
Yes. Work-life balance. Don't get me
Yes.
started on that one. People are like, "How do you balance life and work?" I'm like, "My life is work. What are you talking about?"
Yeah, and you particularly wear so many hats. So, yes.
But I loved what you said about, you know, staying creative and staying organized and finding your niche, because I think a lot of folks think it's going to be easy
Mhm.
until you really look at the business landscape. But I do want to hear more about your process, your creative process. Um, I have had the privilege of being, a client on the receiving end of your creative process, which is amazing. The way that you take back the feedback, how quick and responsive you are, and the way that you do the research that we didn't have to ask you to do in order to fill in the gaps, and create uh, and pull together the content in the way that we need it has been awesome. And so I want to just talk about how you deal with creative roadblocks, how you stay creative, um, and uh, and yeah, just more about that.
Yeah, it definitely I do a lot of learning. I will say that. I do a lot of intentional learning. I read a lot of books. I have found creative communities, especially through 2020. I was able to find Creative Mornings, which is an international organization that basically has like Zoom style calls throughout the month. And there's different basically independent artists who are just volunteering to like teach classes on different things, and anything from like how to stay organized, how to do different design work within different software. Some of them are just like, work life balance, like just take an hour to reset with other folks who are also like minded people. I found that online community, which has been super helpful. Skillshare is another resource that I use to just stay learning. I feel like I'm a forever student. And I think that's what helps me be creative and stay curious within my own craft. Um, and stay inspired as well. Um, yeah, there's some different websites that I go to for inspiration, and that definitely helps me to get out of a roadblock. But also, like, creative work is creative work. Like, it's energy, it's a fluid thing, it's a living thing. And I think sometimes non-artists don't understand that completely. So, sometimes when you don't have that energy, it's really important to rest, and to do something else. For me, I like to get outside and um, go for a hike, go for a run, and that's how I reset and return back to my work. So you can't force it, and it's really important that you don't force it if you're a creative person, because then you get burnt out, and that's not ain't nobody got time for that. So um, yeah, I think understanding yourself and how you can reset when you feel stuck is really really important. Um, as far as my creative process with clients, I really just, meet someone. I do consultations that I feel are pretty detailed, sort of interviews to get to know the organization or the brand. And from there, I might do a little deeper research to understand maybe the market or what's out there on my own, and go through a series of like creating a mock-up or options for the client, and then um, going through phases of edits to deliver that final digital product. Um, so yeah, I mean that's pretty much my process with clients. I think one thing I have learned over the years, especially in doing design work that's not just my own creative work, but designing for other people, um, is not taking feedback personally. Again, like I am a researcher and an investigative thinker at heart. And so for me, it's really about solving a problem. Um, Folks come to me with a need for solutions, for visual solutions for their organizations, for their businesses. And for me, it's about the best case scenario is being able to deliver something at the end of the day that solves their problem and hopefully exceeds their expectations. And ultimately, the goal is to make them and their organization's members or customers like really feel seen, creating things that um, have been well researched and um, made from a place of love, so that folks really resonate with that final work.
I think you may have already kind of said it, but if there was anything, or maybe, through your process of being a mentor, with
Mhm.
a couple of our students, is there anything that you would go back and give yourself advice on? Like if you could travel back in time and speak to your younger self, is there any advice that you would give your younger self?
I just think being consistent, I think it's something most people need to work on. Last year, I did a lot of like really nerdy, manifesting and all these sort of things that, um, my goal was really to be more consistent and to get really organized and create systems for myself that are just really going to work for me. Sometimes we want to adopt systems and practices that work great for other people, but it's not really true to who we are and it doesn't align with our energy or our habits. And so last year, I feel like I really unlocked some things that I wish I would have been doing for a long time. And for me, that's just making lists and writing things down to hold myself accountable to, meet goals. And I find that um, I was able to complete a lot and, you know, be more efficient as an artist by scheduling my time and being more accountable to how I spend my time. So I think if I had to tell my younger self something, it would just be like create those systems that make my creative process able to be completed from beginning to end and not be that person that was just starting a lot of stuff and never finishing what I started. So yeah, creating systems for myself that work. Wish I could have told my younger self that.
All right, this question wasn't on the prep, but now it's just got me kind of thinking. So I feel like we had kind of talked about this before at some point, but uh, is your vision at all for Pamoja Keepsakes? You founded this, or you founded um, this, but do you ever think about maybe bringing in and working with other artists, like as a collaborative? Or where do you, if all money's not an issue, we take capitalism out of it. what where do you see yourself making, you personally, and or your business, make continuing to do some of the mission driven work that you've already began doing? And maybe you can talk about your personal goals right now of getting into the UX UI space,
Mhm.
if that fits and aligns with this question. And if not, we can circle back to the UX UI stuff.
Yeah, I have worked with other artists before. When I first started doing Pamoja Keepsakes, I was working with Zuri Sabir, who was creating beautiful, beautiful jewelry, and I was creating cards. And so we were creating these little collaborative, sets to sell folks. And so, it's really cool to be able to work with other creative people, and deliver, products for um, to sell. But last year I really spent a lot of time working to basically get more of a skill set in um, UX design. More specifically UX research. And so my role this year is going to look a little bit different than it has in the past. But my long term goal is to really hone those skills of UX, work, and work for some other companies, work for another brand, and really just be that sort of student to soak in as much information as I can. And then um, I would love to, at some point circle back to Pomoja Keepsakes and offer you know, a full like UX design team. A user experience design is what I'm referring to when I say UX. For the audience, it's basically a process of problem solving where you are solving a problem for a client and doing sort of a deep dive in research on who the users are, how you want them to interact with your product, whether it be an app or a website, and then designing that both functionally and visually, and then those things, that product from UXers gets handed off to engineers who actually code and like build the thing into a real life product. So we're sort of that in between of developing new things. And so yeah, I mean, we're in this crazy world right now with like AI, being this brand new thing. Even the most seasoned professionals are just like shrugging their shoulders, like we don't know where this is going to go. We don't know how this is going to be utilized, but we're all here for this ride. So, things are changing, and I think sometimes artists feel intimidated by some of this new technology. But I don't know, like for me, I'm kind of leaning into all the new things and trying to learn as much as I can, so that we can hone and utilize these new tools that are out there. So yeah, I ultimately would love to build a team of designers. Graphic design is something I learned over time, and not something that I like naturally knew a lot about. So I would love to build out a team, like who knows, 5-year plan, something like that, to um, you know, allow Pomoja Keepsakes to grow in services in this cool way.
That's awesome and so needed. We hear a lot about Atlanta being this like tech hub and all of these things, and those are really white spaces. When you get in there, yes, there might be women in the room, but there are no women of color. And if there are women of color, they're from California or New York. They're not from
Yeah.
Atlanta. And it's wild because we know that we are endemically resource rich. Like we have
Mm-hmm.
the population of women of color getting higher education degrees like no other state.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yet you don't see that reflected in the workforce.
Yeah.
Wonder what's going on there. But I want to go ahead and wrap up and thank you so much again for your ongoing work with our organization, all of the hours, minutes that you put in as a volunteer, as a mentor, and then the hours that you put in helping us look like we know what we're doing when it
Hopefully.
comes to design work is really helpful. And I want to just give you this last opportunity to tell the people where to find you, tell them how to get on your Calendly and hire you for all the things. So the floor is yours in that regard. And if there's anything else that you wanted to tell folks about your work, please feel free.
Yeah, well, I wanted to thank you as well. Athena's Warehouse has been really an amazing, partnership. I don't even feel like we have like a client like designer relationship. I mean, we do, but as you mentioned, like even being able to be a mentor and work on these different projects that you have going with the girls, like it's just really, really been a blessing to me. In the last mentor session that I had with my mentee last month, I just had like a full circle moment because we were talking about SMART goals, and like I can remember where I was and who taught me that, when I was a student in like middle school. And so it was really cool to, as a grown person, you know, circle back and tell a student, how to align their passions and break them down into these achievable goals. So I love being able to work with you and work with Athena's Warehouse in so many different ways. And, it's just been a really amazing ride, and it really fulfills me as a human, as a person who's trying to make my 7-year-old self proud. um, so yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for, you know, working with me and giving me that opportunity. As far as where I can be found, pamojakeepsakes.com is my website. You can find all the things there. I'm also on, Instagram. Pamoja Keepsakes is my handle. Through those links, you can also find my link for Calendly, so you can set a 30-minute meeting for a consultation through that link. And yeah, I think that that's all the things.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. Y'all be sure to follow our favorite artist, the unofficial official artist of Athena's Warehouse, Whitney Bentley at Pamoja Keepsakes on Instagram. And be sure to tune in to the next episode. Thanks again so much, Whitney, for being here with us today. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for ensuring our ladies get out of survival mode and into thriving mode, to a place where they can see a clear path to their dreams beyond resilience.